Lord, why is the silence so loud? Because that's where you finally hear me. I didn't expect this answer. I just wanted comfort, a sign, anything to make me feel less alone. But the sky remained silent for too long. And in that time, everything inside me began to scream. I prayed, I waited. Where was the Lord when I needed him? I was in the same place as always. But you were listening to everyone but me. God didn't say it harshly. He wasn't accusing me. It was as if he were holding up a mirror to me, with a tenderness that left me disconcerted, because it was true. I was surrounded by voices, the expectations of others, my anxiety, the pressure to appear strong. Everything spoke louder than him. And now, in this very moment, those voices had disappeared. And that's when I realized I no longer knew how to speak to myself. My soul had gone silent, and along with it, my courage too. Why is it so hard to trust when I'm hurt? Because you've learned to associate presence with emotion, and I'm not a feeling, I'm a truth. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I wanted to argue, but I didn't have the strength. I wanted to understand, but I was tired of even trying. Then an old memory came to mind. I was a child. I was scared in the dark, and my father said to me, "Don't worry, I'm here." And even without seeing him, even without light, I slept. Not because the darkness disappeared, but because I trusted who was with me. But why isn't it easier to trust like this now? Because now you have control as your idol. And where control reigns, faith dies suffocated. That got through to me. Had I become so dependent on explanations that I had forgotten the power of simply believing? God seemed to be calling me back to something simpler, deeper, a place where I didn't need proof, just presence. What do you want me to do? House. Say what? I have no more words. Just a tiredness that doesn't seem to go away. Speak anyway. Tell your soul it is not alone. Tell it what you have forgotten. Tell it that I am still God. My lips trembled. Something inside me resisted. It felt strange to speak to my own soul, but there was something about that call, something different, as if my faith were at the bottom of a well, waiting for me to rescue it with the cord of my voice. So I started. Hey, tired soul, remember who created you? A shiver ran through me. Soul, do you remember the fire that once burned here? Remember the promises, the times it seemed impossible, but it still happened? God didn't interrupt. He just watched, like a father watching his son learn to walk again. Remember when everything seemed lost and yet something inside me said, "It will pass." It was the Lord, wasn't it? It's always been me. But you only recognize it when you silence the world and hear the whisper of eternity within you. So why do we forget so easily, God? Why does pain make us amnesiacs of faith? Because you learned to measure my presence based on human emotions. But I am more constant than the sun. I am more real than the air. You just need to speak until your soul remembers who I am. I closed my eyes again, this time not to escape, but to listen. And deep in my chest, almost imperceptibly, something pulsed differently. It wasn't peace, it wasn't joy, a certainty that even if no one understood me anymore, even if everyone abandoned me, even if words failed me, God's silence is still presence. Sir, what if I forget again? Then say it again. What if the pain comes back? Speak louder than her. What if no one listens to me? I listen, and your soul too. At that moment I understood. My faith does not need to wait for the storm to pass to rise. She needs stand up in the middle of it, even if it's shaky, wounded, hoarse. If she speaks, she survives. And maybe that's what God always wanted to show me, that when the soul is silent, it is not the end. It's just the beginning of the most important voice, that of faith that refuses to die. God, why do I talk and nothing seems to happen? Because you are still waiting to feel before you believe. This answer paralyzed me. But I thought faith was something we felt. No, faith is something you choose. Even when your heart is silent, even when your soul is cold. I remained silent. I wanted to retort, but he was right. How many times have I conditioned my prayers on what I felt? How many times have I thought everything was falling apart just because the goosebumps didn't come, the music didn't play, or the tears didn't fall? I used to call it lack of God, but now I realized maybe it was just a break. Maybe he was there all along, waiting for I learned to speak even without wanting to. So what does the Lord expect of me? May you speak even when everything inside you wants to be silent. Speak to your soul, like you would speak to a friend in a coma. You don't know if he's listening, but you still believe the voice might awaken something inside. It took me apart, because that's exactly how I felt, in an emotional coma, breathing on the outside, but sleeping on the inside. But what if my soul doesn't want to respond? Then insist. Because you need to remember that the desert doesn't answer, but it listens. And everything that listens to my word blossoms. Even in silence, I felt a lump in my throat. So many times I had kept quiet, thinking that silence was a sign of spiritual failure. But in that instant I understood. Failure is not in silence. It is in conforming to it. Sir, what if I get tired halfway? Then tell that to your soul too. Talk about your weaknesses, but don't make them your home. Talk about the pain, but don't let it define your truth. Speak until your soul begins to breathe again. Breathe again. This idea struck me in a strange way. Can the soul really get out of the habit of living? Could this deep tiredness, this constant discouragement, this lack of sparkle in the eyes, actually be a muffled cry from the soul asking for a living word? God, what if I forget who I am, then remember who I am, and that will be enough to remember who you are? These words made me tremble. I've always tried to find myself within myself, in my story, in my achievements, in my mistakes. But maybe that's why I kept getting lost. I was trying to remember myself without looking at him. What if I'm too weak? That's where the strength appears. Not like thunder, but like a breeze, like a word whispered in the dark. Keep going. I closed my eyes, and there, inside me, I began to speak. Not for people, not for the world, but for my forgotten soul. You were not created to sink. You were not born to live numb. Remember the last time the light shone? Remember that prayer that seemed impossible and happened? Remember that he is still the same? The tears came, but this time, not out of desperation. They came as an answer, as if my soul, even in a coma, was squeezing my hand back. God, is she waking up? It is, because you decided to speak, and faith comes by hearing, until the soul remember and wants to live. What if I stop again? Then say it again and again and again, until the desert hears, until the dry bones listen, until hope returns to walk. Everything inside me was shaking. It wasn't a thunderous miracle. It was something more subtle but even more powerful. The feeling that something in me was coming back to life. Sir, what if, deep down, I no longer believe? Then start with what little is left. Even if your faith is half-hearted, speak up. Even if there's only a thread of voice left, use it. Why faith doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be alive. I closed my eyes again, and I whispered to my soul as one who sows life on dry land. I still believe, even tired, even in silence, even without signs. I still believe. God, why does it seem like the more I try to believe, the more thoughts attack me? Because now you are a terrain that threatens the enemy. The answer caught me off guard. I was hoping for comfort, maybe a cuddle, but I received a naked truth. Darkness does not bother those who are asleep. It stirs when someone begins to wake up. But what if my thoughts are stronger than my faith? Then feed your faith until it speaks louder. Because the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to convince you to keep quiet. I felt the impact of those words like a punch in the chest. How many times have I not kept quiet? How many times have I been held hostage by voices that told me that nothing would change, that no one cared, that not even God listened to me? I feel guilty, Lord, for listening to these voices, for giving in to doubts, for hiding. But why blame if I already know your fragility? Because I thought that believing meant not feeling afraid. No. To believe is to walk even in fear. To believe is to choose the truth, even when the lie screams. And how do I distinguish one from the other? Lying weakens you, distances you, blames you. The truth confronts you, but it also calls you back. I stopped, because it made too much sense. That guilt that gnawed at me inside didn't come from God. It was just a trap, the kind of pain that paralyzes rather than heals. But if the Lord knows that I am weak, why does he allow the enemy to attack me so much? Because only in struggle do you discover the power of words. I remained silent, because deep down I knew. I didn't use the word as a weapon. I used it as decoration. It was a verse stuck on the fridge, a beautiful phrase in the status, but it was not a sword. It was not a shield, and the enemy knew it. So, what should I do? Declare, even if you tremble, even if you don't see anything change. Why the word does not depend on your strength, it carries mine. I felt my throat close up. It was as if God was teaching me to fight, but not with shouting, not with anger, firmly, with faith, with the courage to say the opposite of what the world insists on showing. But God, what if it looks like I'm lying? If I declare victory when I'm broke? If I say I'm strong when everything in me is fragile? Then you will be prophesying, because faith is not about now, it's about what I'm building with you. That gave me goosebumps. Prophesying over myself, as if I could stretch my voice into the future and plant hope there. But what if the enemy laughs at me? He laughed at David. He laughed at Noah. He even laughed at the cross. But the end of the story always proves that his laughter is short-lived, and my word is eternal. I took a deep breath. Then teach me to declare even when my heart is in pieces. Start with what you know. Tell me I'm good. Tell me I'm with you. Say that you were not born to be a slave to fear. Say there is purpose even in pain. Say that the voice of the enemy does not have the last word. And when the doubt returns, say it again. Because war is not won with a sentence. It is won with constancy, with faith that insists, with a mouth that doesn't shut up. I closed my eyes, and I spoke. I am a son. I am free. I am strong, even if I tremble. And everything the enemy tries to use to silence me will be used to lift me up. And it was at that moment that I felt something different. It was not a miracle. It wasn't thunder. It was a flame, small, discreet, but alive, as if the truth, when spoken with faith, rekindled parts of me that I thought were lost. Sir, is this how victory begins? No, that's how it goes. Because you already started when you decided not to keep quiet. But what about when the winds return? Then you will scream inside if you have to. Because hell trembles not with those who feel, but with those who declare it, even when they feel the opposite. God, why are you silent just when I need to hear your voice the most? Because it is in silence that faith learns to walk alone. That pierced me like a sword. I wanted a sign, an audible response, something to prove he was still there. But all I got was silence. But what if this silence is absence? What if I've been talking to myself this whole time? Then why do you still come back to me? I closed my eyes. There was no logical answer, just a strange need to go back, even without guarantees. Because even without understanding, something in me still believes. That's faith. And this faith, even wounded, attracts me more than any perfect prayer. There was a pause. Not in heaven, in me. Because everything I thought was weakness, he called faith. And everything I considered insufficient, he saw as surrender. But Lord, what if my mind keeps screaming that nothing will change? Then you learn to respond with your heart, because the mind can be a battlefield, but the heart is where I dwell. And how can I silence these thoughts if they won't stop? You don't have to silence them. You need to choose which voice you will feed. But what if I can't tell the difference? Sometimes even doubt sounds like your voice. My voice never stops. It can be confrontational, it can hurt, but it always leads you back to life. So the pain that holds me back doesn't come from the Lord? No, the pain that holds you back is poison. The pain that transforms you is medicine. I felt my eyes fill with tears. How many times have I taken poison thinking it was discipline? How many times have I believed that God was punishing me, when in fact, it was the enemy distorting everything? Then teach me, Lord. Teach me to discern your silence from abandonment. Abandonment makes you give up. My silence teaches you to resist. I got goosebumps because it made sense. It was as if God were saying, I am quiet, but I am not far away. And when I'm tired of fighting, then fight tired. Because there is glory even in dragging steps. But what if I fall along the way? The fall is not the end. It is just a reminder that you are still at war. And I do not abandon wounded soldiers. My chest tightened, not out of fear, of recognition, from someone who discovered that even in chaos there was care. Even in the silence there was an answer. Even in pain there was direction. God, what if deep down, I just want to hear you say you still love me? So listen, I never stopped loving you. Not for a second. Not even when you questioned me. Not even when he walked away. Not even when he thought he wasn't worthy. That took me apart. Not because it was poetic, but because it was personal. It was the kind of love that didn't need a stage, just surrender. But what if I'm embarrassed to go back? Shame is the voice of the accuser. I am the one who runs to meet you when you decide to return. I took a deep breath, like someone who, for the first time in days, feels the air actually enter, as someone who understands that God's silence is not punishment, it's an invitation. Invitation to trust without proof, to love without guarantees, to keep going even when everything seems to stand still. Lord, so even in the silence, you are working, especially in silence, because it is when I don't speak that you learn to feel me, and it is in this place that faith ceases to be theory, and it becomes root. What if the pain I'm feeling right now is the ground where the Lord decided to plant something eternal? That question echoed inside me like a silent avalanche, because until then I saw pain as an interruption, like a flaw in the root. But what if, in fact, she was the path itself? God, why do you choose to plant in dry land? Because it is in aridity that the roots grow deeper. In fertile fields, even shallow faith flourishes. But in the desert, only those who have roots in me survive. I swallowed hard, not because I understood everything, but because, for the first time, I began to see meaning in what seemed like punishment. What if I can't handle this desert? What if I wilt before I bloom? Then I myself will shower you with my grace. You don't have to be strong all the time. You just need to keep believing that I am. There was a tenderness in that answer. It was not a call to performance, it was a reminder. He doesn't expect perfection from me, just delivery. But what if I don't know what to deliver? Give what you have, even if it's just a sigh, a look, a tear. I receive even what the world despises. My chest filled with questions. How many times have I held back tears because I thought they showed weakness? How many times did I think crying was going backwards, when it was exactly the opposite? It was watering, Lord. Then my tears are not a waste, they are seeds. Each one carries an invisible weight that only heaven knows how to weigh, and none of them fall without purpose. I felt the ground shake inside me, because maybe I was praying right, even when I thought I wasn't. But what if I can't pray anymore? Silence also prays. The groan also rises. Even the disorganized thoughts you can't name, I listen. So the Lord listens even to what doesn't come out of the mouth? I listen to what comes from the heart. And there, even among doubts and wounds, there is still living faith. I started to realize, faith does not die because it suffers. She dies when she is silent. But mine, despite being wounded, still whispered, God, what if this is all just a phase? What if tomorrow I wake up empty again? Then I will be there, present in emptiness, as I am in fullness. I am not a God of moments. I am the God of all moments. There was a different silence. It wasn't absence, it was presence without words. And what happens when the world doesn't understand this process? When those around me think I'm lost, the world measures by what it sees. I tell you the battles you win inside. What no one sees, I celebrate in secret. I cried, because deep down all I wanted was this: be seen, even invisible, to be heard, even when silent, to be loved, even in pieces. God, what if my faith is still small? Faith the size of a mustard seed, move mountains. The problem was never the size of faith. I forgot where to put it. Then there, in the middle of my desert, I understood. It wasn't about having answers. It was about continuing to trust. Even when everything in me wanted to give up. Lord, so even without flowers, do you still see a garden in me? I see what I planted, and what I plant blooms in its own time. What if the right time is right now, but I don't know what to do with it yet? This doubt pierced me like a silent arrow. Because sometimes God's timing comes, and we're the ones who are late. The miracle knocks at the door, but the heart is still closed. Lord, what if I don't recognize the time of your visitation? Then I hit harder. I know the rhythm of your heart, and I wait until it learns to listen. But what if I'm too tired to open it? I don't demand effort. I offer rest. I am the only one who hits one and brings peace instead of demands. I closed my eyes and felt, perhaps God's timing is not a date, but a disposition, a state of readiness, a gentle courage to say, let it be done to me even if I don't understand. God, what if I'm still stuck on what I lost? What if my heart is in the past? So I'm going to teach you how to plant today, with the seeds of yesterday, so that you can reap tomorrow what you never dreamed of. His logic is poetry. He doesn't waste losses. He transforms every pain into raw material for eternity. But what happens when everything seems to stand still? When I pray, hope, obey, and nothing moves? Who said it doesn't move? Sometimes heaven works in silence. like the root that grows in the darkness before the tree touches the sky. That answer took me apart, because maybe the sky is in motion, even when the earth seems static, and when I think everything is delayed, that what was supposed to happen has already happened. Nothing that comes from me arrives late. The time you call delay, I call preparation, because what is eternal cannot be born immature. I felt my chest warm, because everything in me was beginning to understand. God's clocks don't keep time, they keep purpose. But God, what if I wasted seasons? What if I sabotaged promises with my own hands? Then I'll use it to pieces. I specialize in reconstructing stories from broken material. I create beauty even from rubble. There I realized grace is not just a new beginning. It is the possibility of never being outside the plan. Even when I lose myself, He finds me again. Lord, what if I no longer know how to wait? When time hurts me instead of healing me, then You rest in me. For I am more than the one who fulfills promises. I am the one who holds your soul while it waits. I took a deep breath, not because all the questions have been answered, but because His presence was answer enough. So, even if it takes time, the Lord continues to come. I never left. Maybe it's not about speeding up time, but about learning to flourish in it. Because when the soul rests in God, even silence becomes an answer, even waiting becomes worship, and even the end becomes the beginning. If it still hurts, it's still in process. If it still pulses, it is still a living promise. And if there is still faith, even if it is trembling, then nothing is lost. He is still writing, and you are still part of the miracle.